Good morning. To walk through some of the plays yesterday. Laying the draw, Wickham and Cambridge. Laying the draw in that particular match. Get a goal. Right team scores. You can make a nice return there. 2.16 to lay the draw there. Pretty good odds relative to the market and relative to the amount of time left. Fulham against Newcastle. Thought we'd lay Fulham late on. We did get a goal from Newcastle to make it 2-1. And this is another gentle reminder to you about reference to the market. The market did suggest this was not going to be a straightforward match. I did favour Newcastle pre-match. That was my angle going into this, but of course you've got to be flexible with trading. Metz and Lorient, one of the earliest plays of the day. It was a risky one, this one. For members or who attended the live chat, I took you through the pluses and minuses of this one. The fact of the matter is, the bigger the risk, the greater the return, as you can see here, £61.94. Backing Lorient +1 at odds of 2.58. Very high odds relative to the market. That's the reason for the risk. The second risk element, the fact that these two are also newly relegated, so they could find each other to their liking. So arguably, Metz could have scored to make it 2-0. But it's a risk I took, and it was amply rewarded. West Ham and Chelsea, as you know, London derby. Well worth laying Chelsea late on at very short odds. West Ham, there is trouble afoot for Lopetegui. They need someone like Sir Trevor Brooking up front to get them some goals. Accrington and Port Vale, watch out for this scenario. We've got a bloody cat coming through the window. Excuse me for a sec. I'm just going to have a word with my feline friend. I'm hoping the old stray cat stays quiet. Accrington and Port Vale, look out for this 2-0 scenario. An underdog leading 2-0 away from home. Leading 2-0. Port Vale's stats were pretty good. That's why I took on Accrington. And look at that low liability. Sometimes they don't come in. We had the draw, 2-2. Waiting for that 120 on Port Vale. We had this with Bologna last week. Don't wreck the furniture. Thank you. Sorry, talking to the cat. Had this with Bologna last week. 260 quid profit for an £18 on the draw. Worth a punt, isn't it? Larty and Marionhamn. This must have been a late lay of Larty for some reason. And the back of Marionhamn at 55. I think this must have been a 1-0. Mansfield and Bradford. I did put this forward. Mansfield did come from behind to get the win. But I don't know what happened there. I think these are all from earlier on. Or previous. Well, we also had a smattering of other plays yesterday, particularly late on. If you went Paris Saint-Germain for the equaliser, +1 paid out rather nicely. Fenerbahce and Galatasaray. Thought we would take on the Galatasaray 0-2 lead. It was a derby match, so it was risky. Hence, the liability kept as low as possible. Derby-style match, normally best left avoided because you get unexpected scorelines. Aris Thessaloniki and Olympiacos. This, I think, was a loser. Could have got out at 1-2, lowering that liability. And I've got to find a way to cover these 0-2s and these 1-2s. Perhaps today's live chat, we could look at variable profit dutching the correct score market when we get an opportunity like this. Just to make sure that 0-2 and 1-2 is covered. So Ollie could have got out with a lower loss here. They did get a very, very late 2-1. Just not a going day. The negative, probably the fact they were away from home. Swindon and Carlisle. £40 loss there. This was my personal play. I didn't pass this on to Telegram. Too risky, English League 2. And you tend to see the majority of my losses will be coming in these lower tier leagues. Burnley and Pompey. Newly relegated v newly promoted. You'd always really be on the side of the newly promoted, wouldn't you? which is indeed the case there. Bristol City against Oxford. Got a deserved equaliser here. And again, I cashed out early. Get my £18. This is the Lorient play. £45.36. Green screen there. So that helps alleviate some of the earlier losses. Olympiacos, for example, and the Swindon one, which wasn't an official play. It was a disappointing play from me. Second time I've been to English League Two and lost money. I think I should take the hint at some point. So some good calls yesterday. Could have made a lot more. Did lay Chelsea late on. It was a London derby, but no harm done. We did profit from Aston Villa as well. That was an official call. They didn't look up for it first half at all. Maybe just some tiredness from the Europa League fixture against Young Boys. Fulham and Newcastle. We laid Fulham late on. Make sure the liability is as low as possible. Newcastle did make it 2-1 fleetingly. Leicester and Everton have to lay the draw at about 1.25 or lower. Everton would have been eyeing 2 goals. And you could see the sudden lurch from Everton to more defensive stoutness. That's what I expected today. I did expect a Leicester goal, but I expected it really at 0-2 to Everton, but that didn't eventuate. Ipswich equaliser if you played. Ipswich equaliser if you played against Saints. They did deserve that. Brentford did score first, so if you did get involved there, I'm afraid the London derby element had me hesitant, and I didn't get involved. Did look at laying the draw second half, Palace and Man United. Don't forget, if you're laying the draw and it's not going your way, you can always cash out a third of liability as loss. That way you get 2/3 of your bank back. But I'm sure these two will pay us off throughout the rest of the season. I'm not too concerned making these losses. As long as I've made a profit on the session, these losses, for example, Olympiacos, will pay amply for today's or yesterday's misstep. So further on down the line, you will get some opportunities with Olympiacos, which will easily return that lost liability. Paris Saint-Germain equaliser. I hope you've got involved late on. It's very, very late plays. I had 3 of them, very, very late ones. Paris Saint-Germain equaliser. Dembele, no. Oh, sorry. I was going to say no Mbappe. Dembele, no second goal. They would be disappointed with that. But you could have had a nice cash out, well-timed equaliser. Similar story, Real Madrid late on. We'll probably get to that soon. And there was one more, wasn't there? Real Madrid, Paris Saint-Germain, and NEC Nijmegen, which was a break-even. In the Bundesliga, don't forget goals before half-time, Union Berlin on the half. I did mention that. And I was going to delay, but look at that, 2 goals after 6 minutes, over 2.5 goals in the bag for yet another Hoff match, yet another goal before half-time in a Hoff match. Please remember that for next week. I thought Werder Bremen would offer a bit more resistance, but they didn't. Venezia and Genoa did lay Venezia and back Genoa very, very late on, just because they're newly promoted. Good performance from Venezia. They'd be delighted with the win. Derby-style match, I wouldn't have laid that late 0-0. Desmond Tutu, you could have laid that late on. Ajax, another equaliser. I hope you got on that one. I didn't get there in time. That's why I passed on Paris Saint-Germain and Real Madrid very quickly to you. NEC Nijmegen, odds-on favourites, did come from 0-2 down to 1-2. I was a bit disappointed I didn't pass this on to you. Such an early lead for an underdog. We didn't get that second goal from NEC Nijmegen, but I did stay in. I had the 1-2 covered. And I did recommend that to you. If you're going to play NEC Nijmegen, make sure you have the insurance on the 1-2. Because if it ends 1-2, you break even. If you get involved and you don't take insurance, you're going to take a near full liability hit. So I hope you're reading these. 1-2 cover, ideally. Real Madrid 0 the last time. And we're expecting Mbappe goals. I was expecting a 2-0, but they did score plenty second half goals. Paris Saint-Germain equaliser as well. So a flurry of late calls would have taken some of the liability, earlier lost liability away. Got to solve this 0-2 issue. We've got both teams to score. No, that covers it. You can even back 0-2 and 1-2 in the correct score market, but it depends how big the liability is. And there's something about the 0-2, perhaps you don't have to win back your full amount staked. Maybe look to win back a half. That way you'll have a bit of a cushion if it does end 0-2. So have a think about that. Real Madrid conceding first, Espanyol. Just in the back of your mind, you had the worry that they'll do what they did against Atletico Madrid, and that was a 0-0. But a good performance. Thibaut Courtois, own goal. Carvajal, Rodrigo, Vinicius Jr. and Kylian Mbappe, of course. He's scoring second half goals now. I was expecting a 2-0, but the own goal should have ended your night very handsomely. Nice late gift. Newly promoted, feeling like it. Early play for the members of Football Trading Profits live chat webinar. If you attended that, I gave this a nice call and we did get involved very, very late on. I did tell you to back Shanghai Shenhua as well. I think I made a nice 65 quid or so out of this one. I didn't save the Shanghai play, which was a pity. That's Shanghai Port. But Shanghai Shenhua, very nice. I think 45 to £60 profit on that one. So you can see they do amply compensate for the occasional loser. And I don't normally have a couple of losers in one day, but thankfully we had enough green. Dinamo Zagreb, don't know what happened with them yesterday, but they did score first, so that was my interest waned. I did take the insurance out, looking for a Horsens equaliser. English Championship, we profited, as you can see, from Burnley. I didn't get involved with Leeds, but they're looking good, starting picking up wins. Luton coming from behind to get the winners stand out there. Sheffield Wednesday could have laid 0-0 second half, and similar story here, taking on Plymouth. Mansfield had to come from behind to get the win. Odds on favourite. Peterborough to be relied upon when odds on at home. And Wrexham, there was a possible play here if you fancy taking on Wrexham, the lead, because they're newly promoted. You would have got something out of it, but they're looking good, Nick. Newly promoted and favourites quite a lot of the time. Over 2.5 goals in the Premier League. 2. Please tell me this is registering with you. That was a loser there. We did get the goal, but it came far too late. Come from behind. All hail to the ale. Played this one. Hopefully you played it as well. I gave it a bit of a shout. 2-1. Nice. And it easy does it. The lack of liquidity here was a concern, but there was enough money in there for those interested in the beer to have a go. I gave this a good shout in the live chat webinar, so sometimes you won't get messages on Telegram. Jagiellonia, champions, coming from behind to get the win. Porto could have laid the draw second half. Very dominant display there. So some good calls yesterday. A couple of losses, but they're all down to this 0-2 conundrum, which I'll try to fix today. We have a play around today. The next opportunity I get, let's see if we can get that 0-2 covered specifically. Not necessarily the 1-2, although that will be a losing play as well. Brighton and Nottingham Forest, you'd be subtly favouring Brighton here, but Nottingham Forest coming off the back of that 1-0 win against pre-Champions League Liverpool. They've set their stall out. That's what they're going to be doing against Brighton. Keep them as quiet as possible and get Chris Wood to nick a late winner from a set piece. Man City and Arsenal, possible title contender match already this season. Head-to-head, probably 1 goal in it matches. Let's have a look. 0-0, 1-0. That was a friendly. 4-1, emphatic. It's not going to be 4-1 on this occasion. It's going to be more in keeping with that 1-0 Arsenal win or a 0-0. So you could, I think, back 0-0 pre-match. It's going to be at tasty odds given the star quality on that pitch. But this is a real derby-style match if ever there was one. Man City's odds, I thought, were too short against Inter, and that proved correct in the Champions League. And it's going to be a similar story today. I think they're not really deserving of odds-on status today. Arsenal have really picked up. They'll be looking to keep a clean sheet, probably nick a 0-1 like they did against Tottenham Hotspur last week. Monaco should be favoured against Le Havre, newly promoted a couple of seasons ago. They still do most of their good work at home, Le Havre. And that's really it in the French League. Look at that tough coupon. 2.25, 2.2, 2.55 and 2.2 the favourite. Suggestive of a tough afternoon in France. Monaco the most readable there. Bayer Leverkusen and the Wolf, again, pile in over 2.5 goals, first half goals. So I'm just going to shortlist matches of interest, possibly looking at Arsenal nicking this one. Monaco, strongly favoured for me. Bayer Leverkusen, over 2.5 goals in the first half. Okay, like they did against Hoffenheim, and like Hoffenheim did yesterday. Possibilities of them getting it done and dusted by half-time. Stuttgart and Dortmund, this is a tough one to pick, both Champions League sides. St. Pauli, newly promoted, again, target the newly promoted side at home, particularly if they're leading 1-0. 2.3 the favourite, 2.45 the favourite. It's telling you the opening two matches, Serie A, very tough to read. Roma against Udinese. Udinese are avoiding draws. Their manager will be delighted with that. And we've got a Milanese derby. AC Milan coming off the back of that loss to Liverpool. Inter Milan kept it 0-0 by Manchester City. I would be favouring Inter Milan here on paper, but it is a local derby. You saw with Brentford yesterday, can get some surprises in derby-style matches. Feyenoord look to bring it home. 20 goals in them. PSV, 3 reliables today. In the Eredivisie, will certainly get a shortlist from me. Atletico Bilbao have really impressed me early season. Winning at odds higher than this. They've got some battling qualities and they've got goals. So I expect a good performance from Atletico Bilbao today. Villarreal, Yellow Submarine against Barca. I expect Barca to continue on the merry way. Got a loss midweek, down to a red card. So they have been the most impressive side in La Liga. Atletico Madrid, this suggests a tester, 1.8, likely because it's going to be a 10-man defence from Rayo Vallecano. It's an appealing fixture list in the Bundesliga. We've got 1.67 Sturm Graz at home. We've got Red Bull Salzburg against Swarovski Tirol away from home. And we've got Rapid Vienna at home against Austria Vienna. This is a local derby, so I'd be a little more reluctant to play that one. Belgian Jupiler League looks interesting today. My favourite side, Dender. Watch out for them. They could put a spanner in the works for Genk. They have been the most impressive newly promoted side. In Europe, for me, early season, they haven't feared anybody. They've been playing some really big guns to start the season, coming out of them with excellent results. Unison Gilwell, the champions, 0-0. A win against Ghent when not expected to. Look at the odds. Pre-match odds, if we got them, 1.48. Now bear that in mind with today's market. 1.45. So I expect a potential surprise here. And the value play would be in laying a Genk lead, particularly if it's 2-0 lead. Dender, very, very impressive, newly promoted in Belgium. Well, like we did with Shanghai Shenhua, there's no harm in me just keeping an eye on the odds on favourites in China. We saw Shanghai Shenhua, very, very late winner. Very nice profit for a late play there yesterday. 1.2 favourites, kept faith with them. 0-1 down until about the 85th minute. So watch out for Zhejiang Professional later on. 1 o'clock, probably my start of the day. Can Rijeka take advantage of a very, very unexpected Dinamo Zagreb mullering yesterday at short price? Short at a short price, Sparta Prague, the usual reliables. Be following them with interest. Mlada Boleslav odds on at midday. Sigma Olomouc playing newly promoted Dukla Prague. So automatically I've got an angle in. We'll be potentially targeting Dukla Prague, particularly when the market suggests as much as well. It's a mixed bag in the Super League today. There's no emphatic favourite. Brøndby did provide for us last week. A tendency to be reliable. Aarhus, odds on away from home, automatically gets respect. Vejle, I would expect goals in this particular match. And Midtjylland, normally reliable, but only just scraping odds against. Hovedovre, Odense, certainly. They're going to outscore Roskilde. Another great side for over 2.5 goals, OB Odense. Preston against Blackburn, local derby. 2.5 the favourite. That will get short shrift from me today. Watch out for a potential over 2.5 goals. We can't expect 100% over 2.5 goals in the Premier League 2, but you've seen how many of them come in. Now, you could either employ a bet and go strategy with a specific staking plan, or find yourself an exit point to keep your liability low if it's you don't get that important goal before halftime. It's been a superb Premier League 2. You just saw 100% strike rate yesterday for over 2.5 goals. No? Okay. Oh, sorry, looks like I kept that rolling when I should have paused the video. Just looking at their goal times, I'm getting it mixed up with the EIK, another newly promoted side. They had 20 goals conceded in the second half, but no, not this with Guineaston. Probably not going to be on my shortlist today, but 1.65, I suppose it's going to do no harm monitoring the match. Bundesliga 2, I have really enjoyed taking on Ulm. They have led on a couple of occasions this season already and failed to win. So they look targetable. Preußen Munster we targeted last week as well. They're playing Jan Regensburg. I think Jan Regensburg are a familiar face in Bundesliga 2. We can look at the previous form. Yeah. But Preußen Munster, I think, are newly promoted from the 3 League. So they could be targetable as well. That's certainly the way I'll be approaching these two matches at 12:30 in the Bundesliga 2. Right, it was a very, very tight title race last year. That's important because Olympiacos lost yesterday. So the onus must be on Panathinaikos and AEK Athens in a local derby to punish Olympiacos' dropped 3 points. So I'll be looking at those with interest later on. Norwegian Elite Series is always worth stopping off at. We've only got Rosenborg really strong odds on favourite today. Tromsø at home. None of the big guns really. Well, no, I stand corrected. The big guns are playing each other. Hence 2.3 the favourite. This is what I would term a derby style match in Norway. Very tough to unpack these two. In-play stats or not at all. Two of the big guns. Probably top 2, top 3 in the standings. Certainly Bodo Glimt are. Brann are 4th. So it's a top clash, but look at the gap between Bodo Glimt and second place, 20 points. So on that basis, just a subtle nod towards Bodo today. A couple of the usual familiar names in Poland. Rakow, champions a couple of seasons ago. Lech Poznan, familiar names. We'll see how they perform today. Arka Gdynia performed yesterday. Tichy, odds on, just worth a little look at 4 o'clock. See if they deserve their odds on quote. I like 1.5 to 1.7 odds at home. Tends to suggest an air of reliability and a bit of accuracy from the market as well. They tend to get these quite good. Caveat, I don't expect these sides to lose. So you could end a trade with a break even or a draw. So they tend to have reliability about them, these kind of odds. Great performance from Porto second half yesterday. We're expecting a blitz from Sporting Lisbon. Again, 1.07 brings with it your own assumptions. If it's 0-0 after 20 minutes, 1-0, 2-0, any unquoted half-time score market, 3-0, 3-1, any other home score. Tagging to Portugal, we had some familiar names out yesterday, but it's a competition I put on the back burner. Pacos Ferreiro Rocher, the ambassador's favourite team. But one of the standouts here, the Chavs. So just keep your wallets safe when the Chavs are about. And your catalytic converter from your car might go missing during the Chavs match. Covia, Sporting Covia, 1.25 favourite. No real marquee clubs today. They're all playing domestic football, domestic league football. But some familiar names, Firenze from the second tier. They were liquid enough yesterday. I was watching the Maritimo match, odds. So we might get something. But it's certainly going to be on the back burner today. Nothing doing in Romania today, that's for sure. Elche, I think, newly relegated. We can double check. Just note these, newly relegated at home at odds of between 1.5 and 1.7. No, they were in La Liga too, so my mistake. Must have gotten them mixed up with Eibar or something like that. Eibar should be newly relegated. Let's have a look. Should be Spanish La Liga last season, Eibar. No, La Liga 2, so my mistake. 2 odds-ons at home. Just get a cursory glance in the market from me today. I think Castellón sounds like a newly promoted team. Am I going to get 3 out of 3 wrong in this particular league? Let's have a look. Yeah, newly promoted. Could be vulnerable. Castellón. And they're odds on today, so that's notable. Familiar names in the Allsvenskan. A 2-2 draw last week, I believe, for the Elf at odds on, dropping points, but they are at home today. And I would also look at Malmo, who tend to be reliable. Trelleborg odds on in the Superettan. We'll just get a gentle nod, particularly if Skövde score first. I'll do my research in play if that occurs. The last league should be Switzerland. Super League today. Young boys are out and about at odds on. And Lausanne at odds on against Yverdon, newly promoted Yverdon. I'd be keener to focus on the young boys. Are they going to get back into something like the reliable form that we know them coming from behind easily? Besiktas odds on against the Turkish Yorkshiremen. I think this could be one to target the Turkish Yorkshiremen playing one of the big guns in Turkey at 6 o'clock. They could be very vulnerable, even though they've got Alan Titchmarsh and Nora Batty as the manager. And at half-time, to Orvis lad and Tut Tetleys come in to Tut Stadium, get them a nice cup of Tut tea for Tut half-time. Fantastic second-half performance from Eyüpspor. Fun twatting-tastic. Aye. Jeffrey Boycott, I think, will be watching this one later on. Firmly favouring Besiktas, but you never know. Newly promoted away against the big gun. Might have a specific setup in mind. Umrani Espor, odds on. So some familiar names, some potential today. Sunday live chat webinars tend to be speculative. We tend to be going all around the houses. But as you can see here, we've got a short list of some very solid teams. That's what I like. And we're going to see more quality Sunday football now that we've got Champions League on a Thursday. So some of the Champions League contenders will be playing on a Sunday during Champions League week. So I will be looking at a live chat webinar, I think, at 1:30 p.m. Members only. We're probably going to open it up to everyone next week. 1:30 looks a good start for Twente and Feyenoord. And I'll be keeping an eye on the early kickoffs, of course, from 12:30 onwards. We've got a few of them midday kickoffs, well worthy of our attention. Mlada Boleslav odds on, and we've got Vejla goals expected. That would be my angle in here. So that's my shortlist today. Just a reason why I've shortlisted. Well, Nottingham, keep an eye on them, but I don't think they'll score that second goal against Brighton today, so they could be gettable. Derby-style match. Look for the potential shock result. Potential 0-1 Arsenal win like they did against Tottenham Hotspur. Back 0-0 pre-match would be my value play here. This looks accurate. Monaco, Bayer Leverkusen, over 2.5 goals. First half goals. Have a go with that one. Both teams to score if possible. Over 2.5 goals. An obvious play. Probably going to be too skinny though. St. Pauli, layable, newly promoted, or targetable. See whether this Udinese avoid the draw this season. Inter Milan slightly favoured in what is a local derby, so you've got to be cautious with that one. It looks like the big guns are out and they look reliable. But a couple of them are away from home, PSV and Twente. Barcelona have been very reliable this season. Expect them to continue along their merry way. 1.8 looks very high about Atletico Madrid. Watch out for a very defensive, frustrating performance from Rayo Vallecano with that in mind. Sturm Graz look very worthy home favourite. Salzburg tend to deliver as well. Dender would be the standout for me in the Jupiler League. Potential shock. They shocked Ghent. Ghent were 1.48. I could sniff out a potential trade against the market here, favouring Dender. Potential shock result. So that's plenty of football. 1:30 kickoff. It's turning into a bit of an epic, this one. But there's plenty to get across to you. Hopefully a profitable day today. Live chat webinar 1:30. More details to come for members at footballtradingprofits.com.